Good morning, dear friends in the Dharma. How nice to see you again this morning, again in many cases. It's kind of funny, historically, Sunday morning has been the largest gathering at PIMC, and now with the regular weekdays, it's not. It's very interesting. We've learned a lot through this COVID time. I wonder if I can turn off that. I don't know how to do it selectively, but that'll do for now. So my name's Robert Beatty. I'm coming to you from the Buddha Broadcasting Network tent in eastern Beaverton, Oregon. There were beavers here. There's actually 3 beautiful marshy watersheds that come down through Beaverton and Hillsborough. But alas, the beavers have moved on. So this is a production of the Portland Insight Meditation Community, and I invite you to check out the website at portlandinsight.org, and there's several boxes right below the beautiful top picture, and one of them lists all the online offerings. And there's something really every night of the week except Friday, and every weeknight except Friday, and Tuesday mornings, and also I'll be mentioning there's a 4-hour retreat coming up on the 6th of June with myself and Betsy Toll. And these are the teachings of the Buddha as they were transmitted down through the early teachings, the Theravadan teachings. And to the best of our ability, we are trying to bring the active ingredients of Dharma practice and leave some or a lot of the cultural trappings in Asia. So when you read the website, you'll see it's an experiment in American Buddhism. Not American as in American nationalism or patriotism, but it might be better to call it in Western Buddhism. So, I like to begin with a poem, and I'm going to be speaking today, the Dharma talk, after Jim does Qigong. I'm going to be speaking about the great paradox, this paradox we get to live being both a separate entity and the universe. So, go to this. So beginning with a Rumi poem, Rumi, 12th century Sufi mystic. Who says these words with my mouth? All day I think about it, and then at night I say it. Where did I come from? And what am I supposed to be doing? I have no idea. My soul is from elsewhere, I'm sure of that, and I intend to wind up there. This drunkenness began in some other tavern. When I get back around to that place, I'll be completely sober. Meanwhile, I'm like a bird from another continent sitting in this aviary. The day is coming when I fly off. But who is it now in my ear who hears my voice? Who says these words with my mouth? Who looks out with my eyes? What's going on here? I cannot stop asking. If I could taste one small sip of an answer, I could break out of this prison for drunks. I didn't come here of my own accord, and I can't leave that way. Whoever brought me here will have to take me back. This poetry. I never know what I'm going to say. I don't plan it. When I'm outside the saying of it, I get very quiet and rarely speak at all. But who is it now in my ears who hears my voice? Who says these words with my mouth? Who looks out through with my eyes? What is the soul? I cannot stop asking. If I could taste one small sip of an answer, I could break out of this prison for drunks. I didn't come here of my own accord, and I can't leave that way. Whoever brought me here will have to take me back. This poetry, I never know what I'm going to say. I don't plan it. When I am outside the saying of it, I get very quiet and rarely speak at all. There came a point in Rumi's life after his great mentor, some say his lover, was abducted and possibly murdered by his sons, when he became completely lost in a way in grief. And he was grieving, and he was holding onto a pole and walking around the pole and just grieving and grieving. And he had a profound awakening experience, and that's where the Sufi spinning comes from, interestingly. The turning. So, in keeping with our tradition, the long tradition of Buddhism, 2,600 years, and our modern tradition of a song, connecting with the precept, not with the precepts, with the refuges. My tent is interfering with my guitar neck. There we go. In a world where there is extraordinary change, have you noticed? I just realized my guitar will have warmed up or cooled or something. Take a moment to be sure it's sort of close to tuned. In a world where anicca, or impermanence, is the norm, where can we possibly lean? Where can we take refuge? And the Buddhist tradition articulates it as taking refuge in the Buddha, and taking refuge in that which is awake. We can have inspiration from Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha himself, but where do we take refuge is in the part of us that's awake. And in the Dharma, in the way things actually are, in the laws of life, the laws of the universe, physics, chemistry, karma. And laws are simply the way things are, this kind of laws. And then refuge in the Sangha, the community of practice. Community of practice, and I always like to add, the community of all life. At this moment, we are the bearers of the torch. We have consciousness. We are consciousness. And spiritual traditions would say that we have great responsibility with that, because that is the way we free ourselves and also bring love and compassion into the world. So please join with me if you wish. I take refuge in the Buddha. the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya. And of course, refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha is not something one does once. It's something that happens countless times in a day as we bring mindfulness into every activity. And so, as people have done for thousands of years, let's stop and sit. Let's cultivate mindfulness. The remembering to be present. The remembering to remember. And it would be, the simplest instruction is, be awake. Sit here and be awake. But since that's sometimes a little challenging, and what does that mean? We have the strategies that we call meditation objects, training objects. For the duration of our journey on earth, for the minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years maybe that lie ahead, one structure that will remain constant in a way is the body. So why not plop into your body right now and sense its mysterious aliveness? And this is truly not think about your body, but feel it. Feel the life that is this body. can notice the life in the buttocks where they press against the chair, or the back if you're leaning, the life in the hands, in the thumbs and fingers. Notice the life in the feet. Receiving the life of the face. Awareness and sensations. And the body, by its nature, breathes. We are in constant, intimate communication with all things green on the planet. They need our carbon dioxide from our breath, and we need their oxygen they produce through photosynthesis. They release through photosynthesis. Notice that each breath has a beginning, a rising to fullness, a decline, and then a vanishing. Bringing awareness and love and compassion to this natural breathing process. There are traditions of meditation and yoga that encourage specific ways of breathing, and that is not the case here. Here the case is relax. Let the body breathe. It knows how. Of course, the mind is deeply conditioned to think and to plan and to worry and to figure things out. It's part of what has brought us to such dominance on the planet. We can think about futures and prepare for them. We can create strategies and communicate them and work together or against each other for the purposes of meditation and moving toward freedom. The content of thoughts is irrelevant. When the mind wanders, simply notice the fact of its wandering. Again, the content is irrelevant. You may be visited by the 5 hindrances of desire and aversion and restlessness, agitation, worry, sloth and torpor, dullness, or doubt. You might be experiencing some predominant emotion or emotions. Noticing these all for what they are, which is fabrications in mind. They are all phenomena in mind, and they can be observed. And they are impermanent. And is it possible that anything that can be observed is who you are? This journey is one that we do profoundly alone and together. Another paradox. We each work with that experience of awakeness that is ours. And we have profound responsibility for the outcome in our lives, not control. But we do have influence over what happens this moment. When awareness discovers the mind is off in some trance, some aspect of personality, awareness illuminates that, and then there's apparently a choice. Come home. Come home to the breath or whatever's happening in the next moment. In meditation, we're always, in a way, starting over. It's always now, and in now, what shall I do with this consciousness? You may discover as time passes in a particular sitting that everything keeps changing. Maybe the wandering mind starts diminishing more and more, and you find that awareness abides easily in the sensations of breathing. Or perhaps things are quite quiet and then something bursts in. An old memory or a to-do or a fear or just some rumination. This is quite normal. More than quite normal, this is normal. And so we develop our skills of allowing things to exist, but not getting embroiled in them, neither attaching to them, diving in, nor rejecting violently. Just, yes, there's that too. That too. And then home to breathing in and breathing out. In abiding in the body, there are also examples of the fire element, coolness and warmth. And they can be quite discreet. A foot can be cold and the other foot might be warm, or there might be warmth coming from some direction, radiant energy, which is true here in this tent. Becoming curious about it all, about the experience of being a human. That curiosity is the way to freedom. It's common for people to comment on their meditation. I had a good meditation or a bad meditation. Usually what's implied in a good meditation is the mind was pretty quiet, concentration was relatively high, and there was very little suffering. Very little wandering mind usually implied in that. There's another much more helpful way to think about our meditation, which is I sat there for 40 minutes or 20 minutes or 10 minutes, and I did the best I could to be awake to and to accept whatever was happening. Today's meditation had a lot of restlessness, or today's meditation was remarkably quiet and concentrated. I could hardly stay awake today in meditation. These are all fine reports. Today the mind was full of jealousy or self-hatred. I set myself free from self-hatred at least 10 or 15 times. Now that's a successful moment of practice. Please now become aware of the life in your head and neck and shoulders. And let's experiment with some very slow, simple movements. Allowing the ear, the right ear, to be drawn to the right shoulder while the shoulder stays still. And letting it go the other way, the left ear to the left shoulder. Where do the sensations arise? Are they pleasant, unpleasant, or not yet decided? Once again to the top and then over to the right. And then the left. And letting now the head slowly loll forward onto the chest. And swing across till the right ear is approaching the right shoulder, and then continue around further to the back. Letting the intense sensations of this stretch become your meditation object. And when you get to the left ear and left shoulder, let it go the other way. Let it go back again. Mindful, present. Letting it cross in front, letting the chin drop. Left shoulder, left ear. And now bringing the head back upright. Let's let the shoulders hunch up. And let the hands reach up above the head, and not abandoning practice. Really diving into the body, being here with what we call a stretch feels like. And letting everything come to rest again. And notice the intention to allow the eyes to open. And then let them open. Let them open and there's seeing. Seeing, and in the gallery view there's little postage stamps with living people in them. How utterly beautiful. You might think a nice thought of blessing for someone in this palette of humans. May you be free from depression today. May you be free from anxiety. May that gnawing anxiety that makes us continue to rush on be comforted today. So you can actually take a break, even for just a few minutes. It's Sunday, so there's lots of leaf blowers and things. I don't know whether they come through this microphone, but there's a mower there that way. There's a leaf blower that way. There's someone using a grinder over there, and there's a saw back there. It's all around. Life is all around. People are being very productive. Well, I'm going to ask Jim to do some movement in just a moment, but I have a couple of announcements first. One is, see if I can pull it off with the screen sharing. One is this exciting opportunity. Not next Saturday, but Saturday, June 6th, Betsy Toll and I will be doing a little retreat from 9 in the morning until 1 in the afternoon. We're calling it Love in a Time of Unknowing. And the description goes like this. Spring this year brought challenges that no one saw coming. When COVID-19 arrived, the certainties of life we've long taken for granted disappeared. Days now have their own unfamiliar quality, and more than ever, the future is unknowable. Entering this confusing time can easily result in contraction, a protective response to become more defended. Noticing that, we can also see its potential to open the heart and nurture insight. Join Robert and Betsy for meditation, conversation, and reflection on using these days of late spring and early summer as a time of opening and renewal. And Betsy has a lovely bio. Betsy Toll stepped into the Dharma Trail in 1986 while working on a project in Los Angeles with Ram Dass. Following in his footsteps, her path has been eclectic and orients around service. In 1998, Betsy founded Living Earth in Portland, offering opportunities to explore what it means to be fully human, what we love, and how our spiritual practices shape our participation in our communities, our society, and with the living planet. Through Ram Dass, she met Joanna Macy, Roshi Joan Halifax, and Frank Ostaseski. Treasures what each of them has brought into her life. A writer and editor, she also serves in hospital and home chaplaincy with individuals facing crisis, grief, trauma, and death. She's offered Dharma circles currently on Zoom, workshops, and residential retreats since 2004. Betsy and I have been friends for a long time, and we finally are getting it together to do something together. So I hope you'll join us for that. It'll be a lovely morning. And then the other announcement, this very simple invitation. If you're finding these broadcasts helpful to you, you can participate in the financial life of PIMC. And it's I don't know whether the link will take us anywhere, but here's the web page. And then when you click here, it takes me, I think it takes me, to a list. There it is, the list. And I'm not sure whether you got this, but there's a list of all the classes and gatherings. And if you'd like, you can go to the one for this morning and click on the button and make a contribution. And it's a practice of the heart. This helps me a lot, this meditation, these broadcasts. So I want to contribute and be part of the something greater, which brings it to everybody. And particularly, there are new people coming aboard these broadcasts who've never been to a meditation center. It's quite remarkable, reaching quite a different collection of people. And one last thing about the PIMC, Jim Dalton, who's going to lead us in some movement now, has a Monday night gathering, and I think I saw Gary here. Where's Gary? He's on page 2, I think. Has a Tuesday evening. There he is. Tuesday evening, and then how silly. Greg Maloof is on Wednesday, and then Doug Pullen on Thursday. And yes, it is true that we have a dearth of women teachers. And there's a complex story for that is not heinous or anything. It's just the way the chips fell. And that's one of the reasons for having Betsy come and teach. And we are working toward remediating this imbalance that we have. So I think, Jim, are you ready to launch off in your room there? Can't hear you yet. I know. It's okay. I turned it off myself. Everyone else can probably hear you. Can they? Okay. Funny, I can't. To those of us joining together on Facebook and YouTube, if you'd like to participate in the Zoom gathering, which is where I inevitably pay attention because that's where the life is, you can go to portlandinsight.org and look on the home page for the link to the Zoom gathering, and you can join that at any time. There's also a link there for my every morning of the week, including Saturday, Zoom meeting, and this happens as well on Facebook and YouTube, 7 o'clock in the morning. So please come and join us there. Like right now, Jim is doing a guided movement practice, a Qigong sort of related thing. All right. Thank you for being here.
wrists as we rise. But then there's this the wrists are kind of leading up, totally relaxed hands. And then the fingers move forward and draw back and go up and come down. And all of that is relaxed. It's just an easy upward movement, straight ahead, and fingers pointing up, but the heel is coming down. But it's a round movement, so it's relaxation. There's no stress, but there's a sensation here, and here, and here. And we can be attentive to each adjustment. And then open the arms when we get up to shoulder height. I'm going to turn back to front view and come back to the center and sink and be attentive to each change in the shoulders. Pause for a second and feel the pulse in the fingertips and the palms, and lifting slowly. There's sensations in the shoulders, and then different sensations to open, and then your chest change. Fuller breath in, lots of expansion between the ribs, and then releasing that, just relaxing it. But the attention can be absolutely specific. There's a beginning to the lift. There's a journey upward. There's a turning of the wrists. Feel the attention centered on the wrist for a while, and then what's happening with the shoulders and the upper chest? What's happening with the shoulder blades and back? You bring a precise focus to this slowly unfolding flow of sensation. Now this time we'll just lift one arm up, and when we get to the shoulders, turn the palm up and push. And feel the sense of agency pushing against the sky with one arm, and the other arm is just relaxed, totally relaxed. And then bring that upper arm down, following each step of the movement, turning the wrist, agency again, we're pressing against the earth. The palm opens, the fingers open, we're pressing against the earth. And then relaxing that arm. Lift the other arm, the wrist leads on the way up, and then turning, that sense of agency, pushing against the sky. There's a whole different flavor to the sensation. Intending to relax and turn the hand and sink with no effort at all, down, down, till we get to the waist, and then open the hand and press down. Feel the different flavor of that. Open the hands together in front of the chest, soft opening, soft release. This time spread the fingers and really create tension in your hands and open that up and press as if you're pushing against resistance, and then relax. Open again, soft. Press with lots of resistance. Relax, open. Now reach up with your dominant hand towards the sky and reach down with your with your subdominant hand, and then relax all the way up, all the way down, and then relax back to the center. No tension in the fingers, no tension in the wrists, no tension in the elbows, but still sensations, changing sensation in the shoulder, the elbow, but you're checking to see is there any constriction. Relax again, relax again. Keep it flowing, keep it steady, keep it easy. So the precision can follow the flow of relaxation. No effort, easy change, moving towards each other. The hands are going to cross and then move away from each other. But where are the predominant sensations? Where do you plan to change? Get close to the end of the cycle and then change, but change with ease. And the breath just comes easy whenever you need to. It's a spontaneous breath. It's not tied to any movement. The movement is intended to be slow. So you have this intention to be here, be here, be here. Some areas will start fatiguing. There'll be some resistance, and you have to realign, readjust. Let go again. Relax. Back to the center, and let both hands just relax down. And feel the softness in the shoulders, softness in the upper arm, and the lower arms. Now, again, you feel the pulse in your hand. Okay. One more time, we'll sink and then open to the side until our hands rise up the side until they're out from the shoulder. And just feel what's happening in the shoulder socket, in the elbow, in the wrist, and the open hand. Sensations as we rise. We get all the way to the top, pause, and sink. Staying with each movement, coming down the center. Turning the palms forward, opening the chest, taking a full breath. Bring your hands together in gratitude that we're still upright and breathing, and practicing once more together as a group. Take care. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, dear Jim.
You're welcome.
I just had a last moment idea. Let me see if I can manifest it easily here. Maybe. Can you make that out? I think you probably can. That's a picture of Ruth Dennison in the last year of her life.
I'm not seeing the picture, Robert.
You're not?
Am I the only one?
No, I saw it.
I saw it.
Is it not still there?
I saw it.
I saw it.
It was an apparition. Only those worthy of the apparition get to see it.
I see. Okay.
Well, I'm really lucky then.
I was just moved sitting here thinking of, I have this question whenever it's time to give a Dharma talk. What shall I talk about? What's worthy of the time and energy, and it's such a, in a certain way, it's such a responsible role to sit here and have you devoting time, energy, attention, and so hopefully a Dharma talk is really useful. And then the thought of Ruth came in, and my gratitude to her, and she would be so proud of us at PIMC and everything that we're doing, that we really are her Dharma kids. And we've, way back in 2000, she handed me the first check for $10,000 and said, "Here, start a center." And I said, I don't know what to do. And she said, "Well, you'll figure it out, and other people will help you." And we'd been in relationships since 1981, I guess, Ruth and I. And it was such a privilege to have that relationship with her, and in a certain way a responsibility to keep the teachings going. And I remembered, I had countless moments of, that's not true, they were finite and they ended. But one thing I think of sometimes when it comes to Dharma talks is, after she'd given a talk at Brighton Bush one time, I went in to see her that evening, and she said, "Do you think that was okay this evening, darling? I forget what she was talking about, but she was concerned that maybe she hadn't done it clearly enough or something." And so that's something that comes to my heart sometimes, is I really want it to be helpful. So I invoke the presence of Ruth Dennison and her inimitable style. She was a force to be reckoned with. Most of you probably don't know that on the morning of 9/11, at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning, she got a phone call saying, "Your request to change your flight from today till Thursday is possible. You now have a first-class seat on Thursday." She was on the manifest. She was scheduled to be on the second plane that went into the towers. It was a very impactful thing for her. It was such a close call. Sometimes in a moment of humor, I imagine what it would have been like. It would not have gone well, of course, but for her to be encountering the crazed men on that plane and saying, "Darling, you can't do this. It's not right." All right. So, to the topic of living this paradox of being a separate being and also being something else. Rumi again. 3 Rumi poems this morning. This one is called The Embryo. Little by little wean yourself. This is the gist of what I have to say. From an embryo whose nourishment comes in the blood, move to an infant drinking milk, to a child on solid food, to a searcher after wisdom, to a hunter of more invisible game. Isn't that an amazing progression? Little by little wean yourself. This is the gist of what I have to say. From an embryo whose nourishment comes in the blood, move to an infant drinking milk, to a child on solid food, to a searcher after wisdom, to a hunter of more invisible game. Think how it is to have a conversation with an embryo. You might say, the world outside is vast and intricate. There are wheat fields and mountain passes and orchards in blossom. At night there are millions of galaxies, and in sunlight the beauty of friends dancing at a wedding. You ask the embryo why he or she stays cooped up in the dark with eyes closed. Listen to the answer. There is no other world. I only know what I've already experienced. You must be hallucinating. Think how it is to have a conversation with an embryo. You might say, the world outside is vast and intricate. There are wheat fields and mountain passes and orchards in blossom. At night there are millions of galaxies, and in sunlight the beauty of friends dancing at a wedding. You ask the embryo why she or he stays cooped up in the dark with eyes closed. Listen to the answer. There is no other world. I only know what I've already experienced. You must be hallucinating. And then, from a very different angle, this may be by Hafiz. One night a man was crying, Allah, Allah. His lips grew sweet with the praising until a cynic said, so I've heard you calling out, but have you ever gotten any response? The man had no answer for that. He quit praying and fell into a confused sleep. He dreamed he saw Khadir, the guide of souls, in the thick green foliage. Why did you stop praising? Because I never heard anything back. This longing you express is the return message. The grief you cry out from draws you toward union. Your pure sadness that wants help is the secret cup. Listen to the moan of a dog for its master. That whining is the connection. There are love dogs no one knows the names of. Give your life to be one of them. The grief you cry out from draws you toward union. Your pure sadness that wants help is the secret cup. Listen to the moan of a dog for its master. That whining is the connection. There are love dogs no one knows the names of. Give your life to be one of them. Very different vocabularies. So, this is a really interesting and unusual time. Imagine, wrapping my head around it, I don't know that I can, but every now and then it strikes me. This is a global phenomenon. It's a global pandemic. And it's something that I need to unplug something here, otherwise it's not going to work. It's something that has ramifications for every single person on the planet. And particularly I'm thinking of what are the ramifications it has for you and me, for what do we experience. And among the things we experience is a disruption of roles, a disruption of activities. And we've each created a self in response to the world and in response to our responsibilities and in response to the pleasures we like to seek. And there are ways we like to do ourselves. And it's been quite disrupted. And in that way, it's very similar to when we go on retreat and we put our phone away and we stop talking, we stop reading, we stop writing, and we're fasting from many of the ways that we use to create ourselves and to distract ourselves from the way everything really is, which is constant change. And that is why this is such a perfect time for spiritual practice, because we're really being challenged to wake up to that which we really are. And there's a story that I tell with some frequency. Many of you have probably heard it. It's our story. It's our shared story. And a brief form of it goes like this. 14.2 billion years ago, something happened, which was even bigger than coronavirus. It was the great flash, and it's one thing to talk about that, but another, can you imagine? We can't imagine it. It was so monumental. Out of nothing came everything. It's the great creation myth. And then galaxies formed, and planets formed, and galaxies crashed into each other, and planets disappeared, and then this little planet formed, and then life began on this little planet, and then evolution took place, and then there were dinosaurs, and then there was it appears to have been a humongous object from space came in and killed all the dinosaurs. Boom, in a few seconds, or a few hours, I guess it would have taken. They say the plume, the molten rock plume from that hit went a third of the way to the moon. Think of that. That's kind of big, huh? And then if that hadn't happened, mammals wouldn't have become dominant. We had to wipe out the dinosaurs first. And then all of this happens, and then evolution occurs, and then humans appear, and then mystery of mysteries. 2 human beings came together, and you were conceived. I mean, is that not bizarre? And then all the complexities of pregnancy and birth took place, and then you were born. And then human beings took care of you beyond their wits' end to try to help you grow up and have enough food. And I calculated once that my mother thought up, purchased, and cooked about 15,000 meals for me. And I didn't understand it when I was still at home in college, how she was so sick of cooking. Well, I'd be sick of cooking if I'd cooked 15,000 meals for. I was grateful, but I had no idea how big a deal it was that I was being grateful for. So anyway, we get born, and then we go through somebody training. And we become somebody who has a psychological structure and emotional wounds and traumas and so on. And we go through all these projects. We learn how to talk. We learn how to walk. We learn how to more or less do relationships. Maybe we get involved in having children. We get involved in creative endeavors. We get involved in politics. And we become persons with opinions. And the world seems and is very real to us. Right? People get born, people die. There's things like the pandemic. There's sicknesses. There's vacations to have. There's all this activity. And all of it is seen through the 6 senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, the feeling body, and then mind, the representations of the world in mind. It's all very convincing, isn't it? This is who I am. Ram Dass spoke several times. I heard him about When we wake up in the morning, we reach over and we take our somebody suit and we pull on our somebody suit, and we become usually the same somebody. Wouldn't it be shocking? You pull on your suit in the morning and discover that you're a totally different person. That would be, I think, you'd wind up in the hospital, I would guess. So, it's very convincing. And when something comes along like COVID-19, it really disrupts the ways that we have of reinforcing this is who I am. And for some of us, it turns out to be an extraordinary blessing because we're willing to look at kind of like the other side of the mirror. Who am I when I'm not my activities? Who am I when I'm not when I can't relate to people in the way I used to? Jumping to the Buddha, he said that the taste of this practice in the beginning is the taste of freedom. The taste in the middle is the taste of freedom. The taste at the end is the taste of freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from what? One way to think of this self-building project that is normative and required is that we build a very strong case of mistaken identity. You remember those movies? I've seen at least 3 or 4 where the chief protagonist is found in a park naked and has no memory of how she got there. And then the movie is all about them finding out who they really are. Well, there's something that happens in some of us, and it's not a very large percentage of humans, where we really start asking the question, who am I? Who am I in this world where everything keeps changing and where I keep aging and where before long I'm going to disappear? Mostly we humans like to not think about that, but when we do, it can provoke something of an inner exploration and an asking of that question, who am I? Now that we can ask it philosophically, or we can ask it in a very skillful meditative fashion, which is what the Satipatthana Sutra and the teachings of the Buddha in general are specifically about. And we break it down. Am I this body? And we really pay attention, not just philosophically, but really directly. Is this really who I am? And awareness meets the body in all of its various activities, and we notice that it really keeps dissolving. If you close your eyes, we could even do it. Why don't you try this with me now? Let your eyes close and bring awareness into your hands, that place in the universe you think of as your hands. And what do you find? Do you find hands? I don't. There's life there. There's boundaryless life. It's a cloud of sensations. And what are they? What are they if not changing? They're just change. Are these hands you? Or are they an experience? And what about that which is aware of these hands? It's a little more difficult to know that, but we can. And now letting your eyes open, become aware of seeing. Maybe let's do this. Let's lift the hands up and look at the hands. Now, colloquially, commonly, we would say, these are my hands. I recognize them. They have my rings on them. What if they were gone? Are you still here? You're not your hands. And we can do this with the entirety of the body. So who are we? The sense doors encounter objects, the eye with visual objects, the ear with auditory objects, and so on. And consciousness arises, and liking and disliking happens. And if you watch that all day, it changes just every second. There's liking and disliking almost. And then there's the mental formations. And I'd like to dwell in here a little bit today. I just remember there's a quote of Carl Jung. A reporter, I think, asked him, why is it that most of your patients are in their 50s and above? And Jung was reported to have said, I don't like working with adolescents. And what did he mean? And what I think he meant, and I think he further clarified, was that it takes till our mid-40s and 50s before the ego is really stabilized. It's a structure that we're building, we're working on, and that it's after that point that we can actually start doing the work of deconstructing. So that's an odd notion, isn't it? This thing that's in process, this building of self, doesn't really get complete until at least halfway through our lives. And then there's this process of deconstructing. And what are we doing in the deconstructing? We're recognizing all the things that we're not. And it's another big piece of certainly my interest in psychotherapy and in Buddhism and the way that I've taught and done therapy all these years. We use the Dharma, we use the capacity to develop some concentration and mindfulness, and the 7 enlightenment factors. We use that to create a stable floor, in a way, from which to begin to really look at our personality. And among the things we look at are about self-hatred. We can spend a lot of our lives, so much of my life was spent so uncertain of myself and so disliking myself. I was raised by my mother and 2 sisters, trained to dislike men. And my father was around, but not in the same way he might have been. And so I reached my 40s, maybe early 50s, with disdain for men. Now that's a problem when one happens to be one. But then as that became visible through the meditation and some therapy work and men's retreats I went on, it became apparent that I was not disdain of men. That was a trance state that I'd been trained to be. Not intentionally, it was just what was passed down. So by becoming aware of that hypnotic state, that trance state, I stepped into more freedom. The taste of practice in the beginning is freedom. In the middle and at the end. So anything we can get to a place of observing in our personality, we realize it's like we're taking our costume and making it more and more obvious, more and more, oh, this is a costume. This isn't fundamentally who I am. Now the direction this is leading, of course, is to the direction that poem with the embryos pointed to. There is a different way of being in the world which is much less contracted, which is actually ultimately not contracted at all, which is in complete ease with the way things are. So there's this spiritual ideal or spiritual destination in a way. But along the way, every little piece of identifying our personal neurotic patterns as patterns is greater freedom. Is that making sense? That we start with very small things. We start with the fact that the mind wanders. And we start noticing the mind wandering, and then we relinquish it, we let go. And what is it that lets go? It's the refuge in the Buddha. It's those are thoughts. That's obsession. That's worry. That's hatred. That's judgmental. And each step of that is a step back into freedom. And so our lives can become more and more creative and much more accepting of things as they are, particularly our own personality, because we realize that it has a life of its own. It's not mine or me. And in most circles, it would be really insane to say, you're even to hyphenate personality, the trance states that we think we are, and in the end, they all disappear. One more thread I want to pick up. I don't know if Eric is still alive. There was a fellow, a very fine Dharma teacher named Eric Kolvig. He lived down in New Mexico, and he had a one-liner that I really liked. He said, "Samsara," which is the world of birth and death. It's the Big Bang and everything that follows. Samsara is broken, and there's no fixing it. There's something I want to say here. I guess it's a reflection on my own life. I can stay really busy. I have more emails than I can deal with. I have household projects. There's always projects. And to do those projects requires forming into self. And there's a certain tension involved in that. And sometimes it's very flowing, and sometimes it's kind of chunky, but it's a focus on I'm here and the project is there and I must get it done. I am engaged with that. Then there's this other undertaking which is very well articulated or presented in meditation, which is now I get to sit down and I'm not going to do anything. Now I can turn meditation into a lot of work. And whenever we do that, it's very helpful when we recognize how we're doing that and let go of that. And we move in the direction with our meditation to the other end of the paradox, where there's nothing to hold on to, there's nothing to achieve, and there's nothing to fix. And some of the endeavors that we can get involved in, I was thinking this morning, while I was sitting for a while, that and it's really apparent in this COVID time, but also before and will be afterwards, some of us get involved in social justice, in politics, in making the world a better place. And that's a really worthy undertaking. And it's hopeless, right? We can make, and we can have some big wins, and we can make things a little better, but it's always going to fall apart because that's its nature. And that's unpalatable to some people, but I was really committed in my 20s and 30s, I think, that I was in the generation that was going to save the world. It was going to be the end of war. It was going to be, if we just shared, there's plenty here. And we didn't succeed, nor did the Buddha succeed. So I'm not putting out a plea for giving up on the world. Why not be engaged in the world fully? And why not help the person next door or help with the charity we do, or why not be engaged politically? But simultaneously, let's not forget that we don't want to be embryos. We want to remember there is another world. There is a way of being in which we can relax, and which results in us being much more compassionate, loving, and also probably more effective in the endeavors that we do undertake. And the shift to that relinquishment, I often hear people say, I don't have 5 minutes to meditate. Now that's a crazy statement. I don't have 5 minutes? I do need at least 2 hours a day on my phone in order to keep up with important information. But I don't have 5 minutes a day to just stop and be. Now the why of that is not so much that there isn't the time, but because what's discovered in that 5 minutes is unbearable. And sometimes we have the sense we're being left behind, or we're somehow being selfish. So this is a plea, this is an articulation to the best of my ability to heed the Buddha when he said, if you want to develop mindfulness, if you want to follow the direct path of freedom, take yourself to a quiet, secluded place, sit comfortably upright, place mindfulness before you, and start watching what happens. Use the breath for stability, and start noticing how everything has in its nature arising and passing away. That's the first few lines of the Satipatthana Sutra. So I think that's what I wanted to say. Let me check my notes for just a moment. I think that was it. Yeah. Let me repeat that poem I started with, because it's such a great fit for this. Hang on. Rumi. All day I think about it, then at night I say it. Where did I come from, and what am I supposed to be doing? I have no idea. My soul is from elsewhere, I'm sure of that, and I intend to wind up there. This drunkenness began in some other tavern. When I get back around to that place, I'll be completely sober. Meanwhile, I'm like a bird from another continent sitting in this aviary. The day is coming when I will fly off, but who is it now in my ear? Who hears my voice? Who says these words with my mouth? Who says these words with my mouth? Who looks out through my eyes? What is the soul? I cannot stop asking. If I could taste one small sip of an answer, I could break out of this prison for drunks. I didn't come here of my own accord, and I can't leave that way. Whoever brought me here will have to take me back. So I am going to pause there and see if you have questions or comments, sharings from your journey. Thank you for listening, and I hope that is of help. So I think my computer is such that I would hear you. If you unmute yourself and speak, it should work.
Robert, it's Pamela.
Hello, Miss Pamela.
That talk was so impactful for me. I'm going to want to listen to it again. My mouth was opened a few times, just sort of, it just rang for me.
Mm.
So, so I don't have a lot to say about it yet, but it really struck home. And what you said about efforts at social justice will always fail, and they're still worth doing.
Yeah.
Was very liberating.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well,
thank you.
It doesn't fail. I feel teary. It doesn't fail for the little girl who gets to have dinner tonight because of my actions or your actions.
Right.
It's totally successful for her. But there's always another little girl. And then the program collapses. It's worthy to do, but we never get there.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm.
Hello, Robert.
Frank, hello. Hi, have you been here the whole time?
Yes, I have.
Oh, how nice.
So I found that sentence very strong too. Samsara is broken and there's no fixing it.
Yeah.
I find it a very good reminder. I mean, it's a bit similar to saying that dukkha is part of life, but it says it in a different way.
Uh-huh.
And for me, I find it a relief to hear this, to be reminded of this. And it doesn't weaken my efforts to help or act compassionately, but it takes out the guilt factor. It's nobody's fault in a way. And we can contribute to the better, and we will never come to an end, not in this lifetime. Mm-hmm. So in a way, it takes away the bitter side of that we will not experience a perfect world in this lifetime. So thank you. For me, it was a very good reminder.
How are things in Germany?
Well, quite good at the moment. We are in a phase now where the lockdown period since 2 weeks is opened again. So restaurants are open again. People can sit together and eat, keeping a distance, of 6 feet or so. But the social life is somehow coming back, and that's a very big relief for everybody. We are allowed to visit relatives in hospitals again, and personally, being a massage therapist, I am allowed to treat patients again.
Oh, cool.
I have to wear a mask, but that's okay. So these are just some small examples to say that there is a way out of a lockdown. It will come.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We're tiptoeing toward that. We're galloping in some states, but in Multnomah County, we're tiptoeing toward it. Thanks. Please give Kali my love.
Good morning, Robert. Hi.
Where are you? Oh, there you are. Hi.
Hi. Good morning. Thank you so much. That was just like such a very wonderful reflection on this stuff that's hard to really put into words. I really appreciate it. One thing that came up for me was, I understand the do-gooder mentality, and I was in a helping profession for many years, and I get exactly what you're saying, and then I thought to myself, well, doing something for someone else, actually, if it's energy you have to give, it actually, I don't know, this is maybe a question as well, I'll just put it out there,
Mm-hmm.
that it warms my heart, you know, and so as far as having value in the world, I think the warming of my heart might be a good purpose in some ways. But no, I get it. There's something good about it, but then it's also futile as well. So anyway, there you go.
You know, there's one shorthand that one hears sometimes, that the task is to be as compassionate and generous and effective as we can without being attached to the results.
Yes.
Because it's so good for us to be compassionate and generous and to work for the well-being of all, because it takes us into more of our natural state, which is interconnected.
Okay, very, very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for being here so regularly.
Thank you.
Hi, Robert.
Gary!
It's me, Gary. Hi. So you started with showing a picture of Ruth,
Yeah.
and then you had that wonderful line about samsara, and then Frank came on, and we got to hear his wonderful German accent. I have a request. Can Frank please say the line that you imitate that Ruth said about a leak in the canoe?
Okay, Frank. You mean the Dalink, there's always a leak? Okay.
Oh, yeah, I love
Come
that.
back, Frank.
Yeah.
Hi, Alexis.
Say the sentence again, how you said it.
Dalink, there is always a leak in the canoe.
Okay. And you want to hear it in her mother's language now. Huh? So that would mean, mein Liebchen, da ist immer ein Loch im Eimer.
And in English, with your lovely accent?
Right, that would translate, darling, every bucket has a hole.
Oh, cool.
We
Did
have
that?
the bucket
Yeah.
instead of the canoe as
Right.
the.
Cool. Was that satisfactory?
Can you tell by my smile? I love it. Thank you.
Hi, Robert.
Danny, outdoors. How lovely.
Outdoors. Hey, I was just sitting here and I was struck with gratitude and love, and just by the fact that this beautiful talk, and 4 or 5 months ago you were in a hospital having your brain operated on. And I just went, wow, this is just amazing.
Yeah.
That this impermanence and the gratitude that this is happening,
Yeah.
and just the small miracle there, that that recovery and that amazing thing. So I'm just wanted to express the gratitude for that, and love, and that you're back with us. I was just struck with it today, so I wanted to share that with you.
Yeah. It's interesting. You mentioned that, and my mind went to Vivek Deshmukh, my neurosurgeon, who I cannot mention without getting teary. He is such an exquisite, loving, beautiful human being, and who spent his life developing the capacity to cut a 3-inch hole in my forehead, and then what an incredible gift.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be here without all the help, the support from the community and the nurses. It's the interconnectedness of it all is so apparent in such a thing. So thank you, and I'm glad we still get to have life together.
Yes. Thank you. Beautiful speech this morning. Beautiful talk.
Thank you. Glad it worked. Tiffany, hello.
Hello.
And there's Bryce and a woman with a very interesting painting. Very cool.
She has all religious symbols in her hair.
Oh,
we'll
how
show
cool.
her to you real quickly. Oh yeah.
Whoa. Oh, and look, there's another being above. Oh, look at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And she has a five-sided or six-sided star, and she has a peace sign and just all sorts.
Wow.
Of things.
Incredible. Thank you.
Yeah. I just wanted to express gratitude for the talk this morning as well. During this time, it really has been a beautiful exploration in a lot more depth of texts that contain the wisdom of people who have come before us. And your Dhammapada class has been really impactful. And also during this time, we've been studying the Bhagavad Gita. And a very a running theme, a very big theme in the Bhagavad Gita is to do your action without any attachment to the fruits of your action, which is very much in your talk today. So I just love how strongly that message is coming through during this time, and it's a real gift that I get to take with me as I continue forward. So thanks for being a part of that.
Robert, I have a question. This is Mary.
Hello, Mary.
Hi. I loved your talk too, and I think it's kind of funny that you started with your exchange with Ruth, and here we are all, I think every one of us, wanting to tell you how wonderful it was because it's so rich. But my question, I have, I'm teaching a class of young adults in their early 30s, and I think they have some curiosity about mindfulness, but I'm kind of feeling like they're not really biting the hook, like they're not going to go off and become meditators. And I was so interested in what you said about how we spend so much of our life, up to a certain age, sort of creating and stabilizing our ego. And then once we've established that, we can, start to really look at it and take it apart and so forth, which I really kind of recognize in my own life, even though I had been drawn to meditation, decades before that. So I'm just wondering, like, can you be too, like, what's the, what do you do when you're still in the building phase? Like, is there a way that we can, successfully begin that deconstruction at the same time that we are still building?
Well, of course, this is a model, and it's utterly inaccurate. Well, it kind of gives a little bit of a hint. So, I would say that, I've been meditating a bunch, and doing therapy a bunch since my 20s, and it's all happening all the time. That meditation for a long time is about stabilizing and developing the capacity to have a stable ego. It's very straightforward in a way that when the mind wanders, and then the mystery of awareness happens, and then there's the effort made to come back to the breath, and then we learn over time how to suppress the hindrances. That's developing ego strength. That means the part of us that the ego, the structure which is an intermediary between the unconscious and the world, becomes more stable when we get to be more concentrated. So I've been using meditation for decades, learning how to be a little more stable, or a lot more stable. Now, it helped along the way to reduce and eliminate drug consumption and cleaning up the moral and ethical behavior, because that creates such furor, and then there's more and more stability. And then at a certain point, there get to be periods where there's enough stability that we can then really intentionally go and look, who am I here? So, and with those young people, you just give them your love and your best guess and your best shot, and you never know who's going to get what. I mean, I've been doing each first Sunday of the month for at least 15 years. So that's a bunch of them. What's that? 15 times 50. It's a lot. I do a 1-hour introduction to meditation and PIMC at PIMC. And a very small percentage of those people stick. Now, is it because I don't do a good presentation? Is it who knows what's what? But there are people for whom they come in and it's like they come like one of those spacecraft. It gets close to the sun and they're suddenly in orbit. And so, I'm certain that was true at the time of the Buddha. The Buddha didn't connect with everybody. Lots of people were not interested because they had they were on a different trajectory. So accepting that not everybody. That's that non-attachment to results. I have an odd. It's an odd, really good characteristic, which is I love talking to newcomers. I love talking to the people who are there for the first time and watching them light up. Sometimes you can just see it's like you're lighting a wick, and it starts to burn. And however, lots of times it's like they glaze over and why am I here, sort of. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. I'm at the point of wondering, like, I mean, I have been pulled towards teaching to younger adults. But then I think, well, maybe maybe my efforts are better spent with older people.
Well, and I think your own joy and delight would be a good guide there, where you really get the delight. Many years ago, I was invited to a high school to give a talk, and I did. It was a high school out in East County somewhere. I gave a talk, and it was high school seniors, I think. And I talked to Ruth Dennison later in the day, and she said, darling, what did you talk about? And I forget what I had talked about. And she said, oh, come on, give me a break. You need to talk to them about the precepts. So.
Now we find our way.
Yeah. Yeah. And one other thing, occasionally a young person comes along who is hungry and ready at 15 or 18 or there's been young people come on my retreats every now and then, and they walk in and I think, oh boy, this is not a very good fit, and then they wind up being solid in their sitting, and it's very, who knows. Thank you for the comment. Who's that smiling, lovely man beside you?
This is Tommy.
Hi, Robert.
Hi, Tommy.
Yeah.
You look at her with such loving eyes. It's really touching.
That's the truth.
I'm lucky.
Yeah, it's encouraging just to see you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm always sitting in the background during the week.
I see. Well, it's fun to have you up in the front like this. Thanks.
Mary, if I could offer one additional thing
to that is
Yeah.
some of my teachers that impacted me the most when I was young probably have no idea because I didn't know how to reflect it back and show my appreciation. And also, as I have become who I've become, it's really hard for me to put together all of the little teachings that I didn't maybe even notice at the time that have created a structure that I can really rely on in adulthood. So it's kind of like, you know, trying to walk a cat. It's very challenging, and I don't know exactly how it's going to go.
Thank you, though. That's encouraging. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Bryce. Well,
Robert, it's Therese.
Therese, hello.
Hi. I just, I loved your talk today. Thank you so much. I remember, I mentioned it before when I was 7 months pregnant and I was on a retreat with you, and it was an awareness exercise you were giving us, and I could hear and feel my heartbeat within me and the baby heartbeat within me so very clearly. It was this incredible awareness, and I don't think I've ever achieved that depth of awareness. I've practiced 20 years since then, but through the years there have been these moments when these incredible, just like awakenings have happened in meditation, and they haven't been the same. And the other day I had one where I burst open this creativity that has been locked down within me. And I can't really explain the sensation or the experience, but it was one of those huge upheavals from meditation. And I guess I think that I wonder sometimes about the attachment to these kind of sensations or these experiences, and I want to be that all the time. I want to be that creativeness that blew out of me in that moment. And it reminded me of the times in those 2-week meditations where I felt like I just took a little piece of it back to the real world. And I know that the craving of that, I believe that the craving of that when I walk into it, when I start my meditation, will actually block it. It's just this. So I think I'm kind of struggling with that. I had that the other day, and I want it again. I want it, and so I'm just thinking about that. So thank you.
You're right. The suffering comes from the craving. A quick rendition of a little story. Back during a very painful time in my life, during a divorce and custody battle, I did a retreat with Achan Samedo at Cloud Mountain. And there was a day when the mind got quite quiet, and there used to be a stone path, stone stairs that went up to my walking place that I like to walk high on the property. And in stepping from one stone to another, I fell into this profound concentration, just laser-like, and ease, and no thoughts, and like the divorce became ancient history, and then I walked up to my spot so clear, and then I had an hour on my spot back and forth, no wandering mind, and I thought to myself, I be careful you don't get attached to this. And I thought, I'm not going to, it'll be fine. I know what's going on here. And then I went down, and then there was an hour sitting, and during that hour it was such bliss, just great. And then lunch bell rang, and I thought, I think I'll stay here. No, I thought, no, I'll go have lunch. This is fine. I'm not attached to this. And I came back after lunch, and it was gone. And I wanted it back. And when I knew I had lost my mind was when I was on the stairs, at that particular stair, stepping up and back and up, waiting for it to happen. And it never did. So I think the message in that is that these gifts come along, these moments of great insight or great peace or great creativity, and they do change us. And sometimes events come along that really change us profoundly, like deep awakening experiences, which can last a quarter of a second or less. So I think we bask in the gifts we're offered. How nice you had that experience. What a blessing. I heard another voice when I went there. And it's almost noon. Oh, it's a little after noon, so we'll need to end soon. But is there anything else sitting on a heart that wants to be expressed?
Robert, this is John.
John, hello. I see you.
Hello. Just wonderful, like a waterfall coming over, just overwhelming in terms of everything that you said. Very complex. And there's so much to take away from that, but one of the things that struck me was that I found a couple of times in recent weeks where I was able to step out of that personality, as you describe it, and just move towards the other person in a mindful, caring way. And,
nice.
But I was also at the same time, being clear about my boundaries, and I was not accusing or any of those other sorts of things that we do, or placing blame, etc., then playing the blame and shame game. But I'm very clear about what my boundaries were, and I was not involved in the outcome. It was just, this is the way I see it has to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I get a message from this fellow I was working with, and he came up with an entirely different solution to the problem, which was quite satisfactory for me, quite satisfactory for him. And it was just, I had to get out of my own way in order to let that happen, in order to so we could both come to that place. So, and that happens, I see that happening with a little more frequency.
Cool.
So I'm very grateful for just being able to listen and meditate and think on kind of what we share with one another. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Lovely. All right. Anybody else with anything bursting to be spoken? Well, let's end with that lovely Sufi practice. 101 beautiful names of God in Islam. One of them is Ya Shakur. And the translation means, how exquisitely the divine is manifesting to me in this moment as you. How exquisitely the one, the mystery, is manifesting to me in this moment as you. It has both edges, both sides of the paradox in it, doesn't it? It's the recognition of the mystery and then also the manifestation as you. So it's done by putting the hands to the heart, and then 3 times we will say Ya Shakur with that thought in mind, and you might pick a person, so it's quite particular. Interestingly, even if you do it online like this and you don't know the person, your relationship to them will always be different in the future. It's so cool. So, hands to the heart. Oh, let me get it unmuted for all, so we hear everybody. Unmute all. There we are. Let me get rid of this so I can see you. One more. Ya Shakur. Ya Shakur. Ya Shakur. Oh, let's do it 3 more times. It's fun. Ya Shakur. Ya Shakur. Ya Shakur.
Ya Shakur.
Please have a lovely day and weekend, and I'll look forward to seeing those of you who come tomorrow morning. Happy trails.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Frank.
Goodbye, Frank. Mwah.
Bye-bye. Namaste, Frank.
Bye, Sherry.
Yes.
Hello, Miss Tiffany. I am rather well. How nice to have both of you there this morning. It was lovely. I am calling you with a request, which may be too much. So I trust you will this time and all times take care of yourself in that regard. Oh, hang on. I'm still on YouTube. Well, goodbye, friends on YouTube. Thanks for being